Uruguay have a habit of doing things nobody thinks they can do. Where some teams' signature style is in their tactics, the way they play the game, or the approach they put forward. As far back as their first World Cup in 1999, Uruguay have not been defined by what they do, but how they do it. The French have flair, the Kiwis accuracy, the South Africans brawn with brains, the English have adopted the old school, but Uruguay's philosophy on the game is simple. To Los Terras, giving 99% is lazy. There is no team on earth in this World Cup doing more with their resources, getting more out of what they have than Uruguay. If you add together the RFU head pig dog Bill Sweeney's annual salary and the money they spent on getting rid of Eddie Jones and bringing in Steve Borthwick, you're looking at more than the Uruguayan Rugby Union's entire annual budget. And yet, one of those teams conceded 50 to France this year, and the other had the home nation scrambling, worried and wondering what they might be able to do, whether they're about to suffer one of the game's greatest upsets since Brighton. So let's celebrate, let's dig into Uruguay, the game's most fearless bunch of bastards, a beautifully stubborn side who ran France close, then led Italy at halftime by 10 points, seeking that first ever Tier 1 win that they came to this competition craving. How have they run these two Six Nations sides so close? And whisper it, should the All Blacks be worried? The run on France all began with a glorious score for human version of that rocket device from Tears of the Kingdom, Nicolas Freitas, and it's a perfect demonstration of how Uruguay have evolved over the last few years. At the last World Cup, Uruguay played a style of rugby that was very direct, lots of big physical carriage without much width, without many options for the ball carrier, and whilst they didn't kick that much, once they lost the ball, they would often make more yardage in defence than in attack, thanks to how ferocious and focused they were in that area. It was all about work rate, about fitness, about trust, and about everybody supporting the guy next to them with all they have. Over the last few years, helped in part by Felipe Echeverry's ascent at the 10 shirt, Uruguay have lent far more into an attacking-minded dynamic game, but the philosophy on how they got there remains the same. The factors in what makes their attack work the same as what made their defence work beforehand. It's about a high work rate, fitness, trust, and everybody having players around them who they trust to do their job and run the right lines and give everything they have. So if we look at that Freitas try, the line out is won cleanly and it rotates, giving Arata such a clean angle to invite Ardao, one of their biggest carriers, onto the ball. In 2019, Uruguay was sending these runners in alone with just clear out support, but now Ardao has 3 passing options, all charging at 2 French defenders, slowing their advance because they're not quite sure where they're going, what they're going to be tackling. Ardao dropped it last second to captain Villaseca and clears way beyond the breakdown, giving Boudin a nudge to prevent him folding round to the far side. Arata picks up and Uruguay send these 2 runners in opposite directions on opposite lines, crossing each other. Diana here having folded from the line out and Encarte against the grain. It's exactly the same line he hits in the lead up to Echeverry's disallowed try not that long after, but because it happens so fast and ultimately his impact is so far away from the ball, no referee is picking this up in real time. Only a loser, be it me or TMO, may spot it later if it's on the phase directly before a try. He bodies Bougari and it means Diana is one-on-one with Astoy, who he bumps to keep the carry up, keep momentum going forward, keep Uruguay moving. They then go back the way they came, involving the same players as before, Ardao again and the 2 line-out lifters, before pulling out the back to fly half Echeverry, making his first touch of the move with 2 options now outside him. It's a classic 21 play, where you go one phase in a direction, another phase, and then back the same way, hoping the defence is expecting otherwise, and it works beautifully here. Villiers is in the backfield, and because they're expecting Uruguay to keep attacking open side, France's pack are flooded to near this ruck, leaving Luku alone, marking 3 men. He holds for Villaseca to overrun the ball, thinking that's happening, and then starts to drift out, but Echeverry drops it off beautifully, subtly to his captain steaming through this hole. Uruguay go back once again to the players previously mentioned, the line-out thrower, lifter and jumper, who get over the game line and set a clear midfield position to play off. Echeverry getting his second touch, having called this shape a stacked short side. Now, since we're using stills, let's very quickly play a game. You have 4 seconds to count how many Uruguayan players are on this side of the ruck. If you said 9, congratulations, you are Melvin Jaminet. This pod holds the forwards here, and only Biel Barry is watching these 2 backs floating around in position here. So Jaminet comes up from deep to cut them off from the backfield, help his young winger out. Except there is a secret 10th Uruguayan that can't be seen by Melvin Jaminet anywhere. Bloody blind to them, get his eyes tested. Freitas has hidden himself off the pitch, and the Uruguay shirt being bright orange means he possibly blends in looking like a touch judge. He blasts down the wing like the proverbial rocket, kneeing on the ball and regathering it to score in the corner. From the way Amarza starts jogging into the backfield immediately once the kick goes in, you can tell this was a pre-call. He knew exactly what Echeverry was going to do before he kicked it. Likely called by the 10, everybody folding in shape and trusting his call from 2 or so phases out. The kid's attack management is genuinely outstanding. His calls tearing down one of the best defences in the game repeatedly over this match, whilst Uruguay's structure is really smart. They're incredibly compact in attack, with the width between the flattest and deepest player being one of the smallest in the competition. It allows them to thrive. Everything becomes interlinked. It allows players to run multiple roles in a way reminiscent of Ireland, who I broke down in a preview video a few months back, but they really like to stack a blindside and then go back there repeatedly, so the same players are playing roles over and over again, meaning that by attacking the zone they just left, players getting back up their feet become options once again, as much as ones who never went down in the first place. It's incredibly smart, means all 15 players need to be watched by the defence and allow them to really take the game to both France and Italy, with Echeverry doing such a superb job of calling their shape. Because that same incredible trust led to the second try for Freitas in the following game against Italy. This is a quite exceptional exploiting the extra man job. It's in that kind of genre of try. Legitimately, some of the best work we've seen this tournament in that area. With primary line-out jumper, Nicola Canoni in the bin, Uruguay set both locks at the front of line-out here, which leaves the centre Italy have had filling in at lock since 2017, Federico Ruzza, the best line-out operator they have on the field, just marking them. He's like, well, it's definitely going to one of these two line-out operators. Those are their two main guys. They're throwing it to one of those, just watching the two locks. So Uruguay use those guys as dummies, chucking it to Diana at the back instead. Lendeka, clearly having never been a decoy jumper before in his life, because look at him, makes kind of a hash of initiating more, but Diana does a brilliant job of just sacking it early and presenting it back instead of leaving La Ballon exposed and letting Italy get in for a turnover. Uruguay then go for a long series of pick and goes, loads of them, you don't need to see all of them, here's some stills of a few, and then starting to grind the Italian pack down. Missing a member of that forward group, Nacho Brex comes in to play as a forward, defending on the fringe, trying to repel these endless pick and goes. With Brex in field, winger Monty Ioani steps into defend at 12, with scrum off Alessandro Garbisi filling in on the wing. A full reshuffle, something Echeverry spots very quickly. Italy's entire approach to this game changed entirely after that France match. They likely played a much stronger team than they would have, and they suddenly approached Uruguay seriously. In the second half, they started playing a much stronger kicking game, which allowed them to pin Uruguay back, having let them exploit the fact they'd love to run from everywhere in their first half. But most importantly, they almost certainly will have gone into this game watching very carefully for Santiago Arata, Uruguay's real danger man. This is a guy who kept Antoine Dupont out of the top 14 team of the season last year. A guy who breaks more tackles than a fish on steroids, and so after one brief dart, Italy remain on red alert for him as they did throughout most of the game, as he silently wanders from ruck to ruck. Arata is normally an energetic, talkative character, but he's silent here, keeping himself to himself, which only raises the alarm on him. He's trying to stay out of the picture. He's trying to not be noticed. Why? However, there is one brief moment of communication. As they walk off screen, Echeverry makes a call, and a moment later, Freitas walks over to calmly, quietly tell Arata the play in progress. Uruguay want to keep this a secret so they aren't watching for a trick play of any kind, so it's not the fly off barking orders, it's a message being passed on. As per instruction of Freitas with his arm here, Arata keeps his pack working in field, as he remains still. This starts to open up a blind side, a short side here, with only Garbisi watching it. Ruzza wraps around here to stop a great drive by Ardao, with the entire pack looking towards the post, Italy leaving the blind side opening up, not suspecting anything. Arata hears some sort of call here, he's listening, it's like one more phase but in Spanish, as Freitas and Echeverry line up directly behind the ruck. However, with their key defensive leader Brex tied up here, and Garbisi bouncing back up to the 10 position, Garbisi senior, and the short side has opened up. Arata picks and goes, the aforementioned danger drawing Negri, as Echeverry and Freitas flash round blind. The 10 subtly drawing Garbisi Jr. It's beautiful, casual, calm, just a great assist, giving Freitas the ball to run onto and ride into the corner, beating the cover to ground the ball. Echeverry makes his call about 4, maybe 5 phases early, hoping that if they can open up the blind side while they're still on it, the move will be on, because this was how Italy defended earlier, and now that chance might open up again. And every single Los Terros player buys into it, believes it, and goes with it, trusting their fly halves call. And it pays off. It's patient, excellent, brilliant, composed rugby, and just shows what Uruguay are capable of. However, after entering the half with a 10-point advantage, Uruguay did go on to let it slip. This side had played just one game against a Tier 1 nation in 4 years, and yet raised their intensity and physicality instantly on arriving in France and playing the host nation and then playing Italy to such a place they could have beaten them. What they haven't learned, however, was the mental side. This was an incredibly costly period. A yellow card to captain Villaseca, and for a second game in a row, a sloppy rushed kick leading to a charge down and ultimately a try. The problem is less not making these errors and more being able to put them right when you do. What regular games against those teams brings you is the composure and ability to ride that momentum and put it right afterwards, to recover, to know you've been in the situation before and you can put it right again, to learn. Uruguay have spent 3 years preparing for that Italy game. However, Italy has spent 3 years playing games against big teams and getting the experience and exposure to this level that Uruguay simply haven't had since they played Wales in the final pool game in 2019. The Italy team of 2 years ago would lose this game, would lose to a team as good as that Uruguay side. But time, playing against the big boys, raising their level, raising their standard, scoring plenty of tries, getting better and better, it helps. It genuinely helps raise your level, mentally and physically. And it prevented Uruguay pulling through for a famous victory. Because ultimately, nobody in this World Cup is doing more with their resources, with what they're given, than Uruguay. And yet, since shocking the world in 2019, it still feels they haven't been given their due. This side has proven itself and its will to kick on, from qualifying in 2015 to causing an upset in 2019 to now competing with and almost beating 2 Six Nations countries, members of rugby's oldest, most exclusive, richest club. And most excitingly of all, this tournament is far from over. Uruguay have Namibia up next, looking to win a game in consecutive World Cups for the first time ever, possibly even targeting a first ever try bonus point to further their case for evolution and push their impressive improving attack. But perhaps the real task for them is after that. For Uruguay, play the All Blacks. A game coach, Esteban Menezes, says they're going to go out and try to win. Nothing perhaps highlights the incredible job he's done with this team better than the fact that he can even be in a position to say that now. At the start of his tenure, their target would have been to keep this under 100 points. Now, having given their betters France a proper game, knowing it's the last match of the pool and the Blacks might have one eye on the quarterfinal against potentially Ireland, well, let's just say it wouldn't be the first time Uruguay had done something we'd have all called impossible. Thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. I also hope that there's a microphone right there.
I have a microphone.
And this guy. So we've been doing a podcast trying to cover all the games in the World Cup.
Recorded on that microphone.
Recorded on this microphone and a couple of others as well. That's the idea. We're doing, I think it's the Squid Rugby World Cup Contemporary, if you want to look on all good podcast devices to find it.
It's a lot easier for us to be able to make that because of the bloody whole thing with footage. It takes so long to make videos and so on. But we're trying to cover more or less every single game of this tournament on that podcast. So, bloody listen to us talk about rubbish about rugby.
These have been a bloody nightmare to do, these versions of stills. They're really, really far from ideal. We're going to look to South Africa Ireland later this week. That's going to be next. We may try some stuff just for Patreons and we'll see how it lands. But I wanted to really try and cover, at least one of the tier 2 nations over the course of this World Cup. So we chose Uruguay because I think they've been the most impressive. They've been the one that's really stood out as a story once again. And so, yeah, we want to have a look at that, look at the bloody World Cup, that's the rugby.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll see you soon for some more rugby.
I'm really proud of my country.